Hey guys, welcome to my new series, Jujutsu Kaisen in Review. I wanted to do this for fans who want to revisit the story from the beginning and kind of maybe take a new look at it as we have more context for the rest of the story as it's ending, and also for people who maybe haven't read the manga but don't mind going through the story while also getting a little bit of spoilers because I will be talking about like foreshadowing and stuff and connections to future chapters, so there will be spoilers in this, just a fair warning. But this one is probably just going to be chapter 1 because chapter 1 is beefy. This is just one chapter. This is my volume 1. I did make myself a custom cover, so that's why it looks like this. But let's get into it. So the chapter opens up on Megumi retrieving Sukuna's finger from the thermometer shed. That's what that little box thing is that they show at the beginning. It is meant in tropical regions to kind of keep thermometers and outdoor equipment safe from the weather. In case anyone was wondering what that was, I had to look that up. But it's June 2018. We start the story. Megumi is looking for the finger. One thing I do want to point out on this very first page, Megumi is calling Gojo, right? He's like, the finger's not here, something's wrong. And Gojo, being his, goofy self, is like joking about it. And Megumi says, I'm gonna punch you. I don't know. There's a lot of foreshadowing in this chapter. I don't know if that is intentional foreshadowing, but if you think about it, Megumi does in fact punch Gojo later in the series. So anyway, then you flip the page, we get this title page. I think a lot of people know about the foreshadowing on this one, and I don't even think all the foreshadowing has been revealed yet, but we have Sukuna's mummy in the background, we have Megumi's frogs with like the Sukuna tattoos on them, and one other thing I see people talk about a lot is the fact that Gojo, Nobara, and Megumi are on one side, and Yuji is separate from them on the other side, possibly foreshadowing that either the three are gonna die and Yuji will survive, or Yuji will be the one that dies and the other three will survive. Who knows? At this point, like, the fact that the story's almost over and we don't know which one it's gonna be, I love that. There's also some sort of curse-like arms wrapping around Yuji that I'm fairly sure are meant to represent his cursed womb siblings that he consumed. So, but it might be something else. We have yet to see. Then we get into the story. Yuji is in his occult club, just hanging out, being goofy. It starts off very innocent, very sports anime beginning. It is not like a horror manga beginning because he starts out in the club and all his teachers are like, you should be in a sports club, you're so gifted, but he doesn't care. He just wants to be in the occult club because it's easier for him to visit his grandpa, and it also means that he has to do less work. I also think that it's very indicative of his character that he would rather be in a club that he like enjoys and with people that he has discovered that he likes being around, rather than getting all the glory of being on the sports team and being the star player, which he could easily do. I also think it's interesting that the girl who's like, oh, someone was murdered on the field and there's a dead body hidden there, like her little occult club theorizing actually kind of turned out to be true, because there is a curse hanging out on that field that Megumi sees later. And interestingly enough, he doesn't exorcise it. I'm like, bro, why wouldn't you? Like, there's this giant curse at this school, but he's just like, he's on a mission and he's not stopping for anything, even a grade 2 curse that is terrorizing this high school. The coach that tried to force him to join the track team then challenges him to a competition. Yuji wins it by breaking a world record. Just casually, easy for him. When Yuji throws the shot put thing, if you look at the students that are watching him, 2 of the students may look very familiar. Nanako and Mimiko are at his school because here's the thing, at this time they were helping Kenjaku, right? Because Geto had already been dead for 6 months, but they were helping Kenjaku as a means to get Geto's body back. So they probably planted that finger at the school because Kenjaku wanted Itadori to come across it, right? So they are at this school watching him throw the thing, like just in the background. This is crazy foreshadowing by Gege. even though they had already been introduced in Jujutsu Kaisen Zero, so it kind of makes sense. But at this time, Kenjaku's not in it. We don't know any of his plan or anything. We don't really know why Mimiko and Nanako would be here. Insane. Insane. I also think this confirms one of my theories, which is that I think that the way, we don't really know how Kenjaku got Geto's body. I really think that he somehow convinced Nanako and Mimiko to give it to him, because I think Gojo gave it to them because when he like couldn't bring himself to cremate the body or whatever, he didn't let Shoko do it. I think it's because he wanted Geto's family to be able to mourn his body, so he gave Geto's body to them, and then somehow Kenjaku got it from them. So it wasn't like Kenjaku snuck into the alleyway after Geto died and like snatched up his body. I think there was more in between that is just kind of implied in the story, but not really like explicitly stated. So I think that he got it from Nanako and Mimiko. They probably didn't realize, because they weren't happy about Kenjaku being in that body. They probably didn't realize what they were agreeing to. Or maybe he just stole it from them using force. Who knows? But all we know is that Nanako and Mimiko are working for Kenjaku at this time, chronologically in the story. Geto's dead. Kenjaku has his body. They are with Kenjaku. They're helping Kenjaku with his plan. And they're at the school that the finger was found at. I just think that's crazy. I think that's insane. But anyway. Another small bit of foreshadowing that is not really foreshadowing for the later story, but just later in the chapter, is the fact that Yuji mentions that his club members can't go to haunted places without him, meaning he's just like not really afraid of spooky haunted ghost stuff. And then he later in the chapter faces that curse with Megumi, ends up saving his classmates and Megumi's life, even though it's like, obviously, you know, if you see a giant curse and you've never seen one before, you're gonna be scared out of your mind, but he didn't let that stop him. And then as he's running away to go meet his grandpa at the hospital, he runs past Megumi and they have the little spark moment, the little zzz, you know, the converging of timelines. What? No. That doesn't make any sense, but anyway, moving on. But Megumi senses the cursed object and decides to follow Yuji, but Yuji can run like as fast as a car, so he has some trouble keeping up with him. Then we're at the hospital with the grandpa, and his grandpa is like, he's like, let me tell you something about your parents, and Yuji's like, I don't care. But like, knowing what we know now, I'm like, bro, Yuji, your grandpa was about to drop the sickest family lore, like, you should just listen for 2 seconds. Like, hey, your mom is a body hopper and your dad is the twin of like the most evil guy in history. I think that's something important to know about your family, about your legacy. Like, come on, bro. But Yuji is not hearing it, and I think that's partially because he doesn't care and partially because the plot would be very different if he knew that starting at the beginning of the story. And his grandpa's like, a man wants to go out in style, and I'm like, is that going out in style being like, our family's insane? Yuji's buying flowers for the nurses, he claims, although he probably just said that because his grandpa would be mad if Yuji said the flowers were for him, so who knows. And then his grandpa gives the iconic line, you're a strong kid, so help people. And I want to point out, you probably can't see it because it's backwards, not in a black box. A lot of people have this theory that anything said, like, with a black background is like a curse. This is not a curse to Yuji, at least not yet, at this point in time. He also says to just help people whenever you can. Don't expect gratitude. Just be a good guy. Because he wants Yuji to be surrounded by people that love him when he dies. It makes me think that also might be foreshadowing. We don't know yet, but maybe when Yuji dies, he'll be surrounded by people. And you know, I think it's interesting that this is in the first chapter, because every time someone dies in Jujutsu Kaisen, they're either with the person that they care about the most, or they're thinking about the person that they care about the most, like in like a flashback or a memory or something like that. It's consistent like every single time. There's a couple of deaths that don't include that, but it's like the curses. You know, any human being that dies, even the villains, like they're always thinking about the person that they cared about the most. And then his grandpa dies, and he calls the nurses up. They help him, you know, fill out the paperwork and everything that needs to be done. And while he's doing that, who shows up? But Megumi. Great timing as always, Megs. His grandpa just died, and now you're like coming to interrogate him. Megumi explains that most missing persons cases or unexplained deaths are caused by curses, and that curses are the result of negative energy that flows out of people. And I feel like this is where, as an English reader, I was at first really confused when I started to watch/read Jujutsu Kaisen, because I was like, a curse isn't like a thing. It's like something that happens to you. It's, you know, an omen or something like that. But in Jujutsu Kaisen, curses are like monsters or ghosts, which is kind of like, I think it probably makes more sense in Japanese, but when you first start reading it in English, you're like, what are they talking about? Luckily, like, the visuals kind of help because there's like pictures of the curses, but it can be a little weird at first. I don't know if anyone else experienced that, but I definitely did. Megumi explains that the finger was a talisman used to protect the school, but that it was kind of wearing off and getting to the point where it was just dangerous, and that it was special grade. Now, here's where I have a question. Why would Gojo make Megumi, who at this point wasn't even started at Jujutsu High yet, like barely a sorcerer, why would he be like, hey man, go pick up this special grade cursed object? Like, I feel like that's a little bit out of his league of ability of missions to handle alone. I don't know. I think it's an interesting choice on Gojo's part, but he probably thought it's just out of school, he just has to go pick it up and bring it back. Unfortunately, that is not how it goes. Yuji then tells Megumi that the occult club members have the finger, and Megumi is like, they are gonna die if they open that up tonight. So they run to the school, and they're like, we gotta go stop them immediately. My phone ran out of storage, so forgive me if I forgot where I was. But they go to the school to prevent the occult club from opening the finger, and they do, and these curses start coming through the ceiling, and it's like, ah, scary. Megumi initially goes in by himself, but then Yuji's like, what am I so scared of? Those people are in danger. I should go help them. So he runs into the building, but he doesn't quite catch up with Megumi for a while. First, Megumi sees the occult club members, and they're kind of being grabbed by the curses. He summons his divine dogs. Iconic. Love it. I think that scene of him summoning the dogs was what got me hooked in like the first episode. I saw that happen, and I was like, I'm gonna have to watch the rest of the episodes when they come out because this is cool, if I remember correctly. Then Yuji busts through the window in the iconic scene that everyone knows. He's thinking about his grandpa. He's thinking about death. He wants to save his classmates. It's interesting to go back and read how much he's thinking about death, talking about death, because it seems like in the current place of the manga, I believe it's chapter 259 that's coming out next. So at the time I'm filming this, I'm pretty sure 259 is the next chapter coming out. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's the next one. I'm bad at remembering numbers. But at the current point in the manga, Yuji he's almost like left that ideology behind. I'm sure it's still part of him, but he's so much more zeroed in on just getting revenge on Sukuna for what he's done to everyone, and just getting justice for the people that he's lost and things like that. He's a lot angrier and sadder, and it seems like he doesn't care what happens as long as he defeats Sukuna and saves Megumi, who is currently not in the greatest spot in the manga. But anyway, they're talking about the finger. Another curse shows up and grabs Megumi. It's the curse that was on the football field earlier. Megumi, you should have exorcised it. It is the same one. It comes in, it grabs Megumi. It throws him outside. And then Yuji comes in, he's just punching it, and Megumi's like, bro, that's not gonna work. You don't have cursed energy. Well, he has cursed energy. I don't know. he might have cursed energy, but he just doesn't know how to use it yet. That's a thing I'm going to make a TikTok video about, because a lot of people think that non-sorcerers just don't have cursed energy, which they do. They just don't know how to control it. Common misconception that I think the first chapter kind of perpetuates, because Megumi's not sitting there being like, you have cursed energy, you just don't know how to use it. He's like, you can only do this if you have cursed energy, which Yuji thinks he doesn't have. He might. Sorry, that was tangential. But then, oh hey, look at that. What's that? It says help people in a black box. Has it become a curse? Maybe, because he says, I've actually got quite the curse myself. So at this point, it now has become a curse to him. Megumi then explains that the curse was targeting them because it wants to eat the finger to gain stronger cursed energy, and Yuji's like, bet, and then he just pops it in his mouth and swallows it. In the anime, he's kind of like on the precipice where like it goes up in the air and he just catches it in his mouth and swallows it. In the manga, that is not how it happens. If you didn't know, he's just standing there and he's just like, oh, bet, and then just, dink it and sink it. And Megumi's just like, what are you doing? Stop. It's kind of hilarious. Megumi also says there's a 1 in a million chance that he won't die, but actually it's probably way more than 1 in a million for Yuji, because he happens to be related to Sukuna, as we recently found out. His dad is Sukuna's twin brother, so I'm willing to bet that means there's a much higher likelihood that he will successfully incarnate into Sukuna, because they are connected in that way. But Megumi didn't know that, so. And so he does, he becomes Sukuna. Sukuna is unleashed. Megumi's horrified. Sukuna looks very feral here. He's talking about how he's gonna massacre everyone. There's so many people now in this current day and age, because he's from a different time. And then, right when he's, at the peak of insanity, his hand grabs his throat and he's like, hey. And then Yuji's like, what are you doing with my body? Give it back. He takes back control. But Megumi does not realize this, and he gets down. He's about to summon Mahoraga. He's like, I will exorcise you, even if it kills me. He's like, this is Sukuna. And you know what? The series would have ended here if he actually had, because Sukuna was not strong enough to fight Mahoraga at this time. So they both would have died, but then, everyone else would be safe. So, I guess Gojo interfering here, because, spoiler alert, that's what happens in the next chapter, but Gojo interfering, did it save Yuji's life and Megumi's life? Yes, but does it also cause, the rest of the terrible things that happen after this? Kinda. So, give and take. That's chapter 1. Hope that made sense. I was just kind of rolling with it. But come back next time to see what happens next. You already know what happens next.